Shalom, shalom. Good morning. This is a beauteous day. I don't know. Shalom, shalom. Welcome to this glorious morning. I thought I'd get a jump on today, and I thought I'd just come on and do a little live teaching here. I want to say that I've been sort of methodically, in my own way, kind of making a case to Ephraim, to aka my Christian friends, my family. My new word is I'm going to say my family. That's who I'm talking to today. So I wanted to talk about Sabbath, about the Shabbat, because actually today, as I say, Shabbat Shalom, it is the Sabbath. And I have been trying to, kind of bring up to speed whoever wants to so what I have learned over the last 10 years through intensive reading, studying, learning the Hebrew and Greek, and kind of really going into the depth of the foundational texts that shape our faith, Judeo-Christian faith, and a lot of surprising things have come out of it. But one thing that I think is very important is the concept of the festivals, the feasts of Yahweh. This is really an important understanding that is really totally getting on the radar of Christianity in so many big ways. You can call it the Hebrew roots movement. There's a lot of messianic Jewish people that are coming into this understanding and teaching it from an extremely high-level Jewish point of view. There are many ways in which this foundational truth is being restored. I started on Passover doing Facebook Lives, and now I'm going to go through the whole 1 year of the feasts, because starting with Passover, which is the first feast in the calendar year, we just did Shabbot in the summer, and the next one will be towards September, the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah. Having an understanding of these, because it's my opinion, and I don't think it's, I would say it's even more than my opinion, it's what the text says, that these are everlasting ordinances of our God, of Yahweh Elohim. And one thing we know about him, right? It says he does not change. So if anything's changed in here, it's been through our own volition. And so if it's been through our own volition, if there's going to have to be a correction, it's going to have to be, again, by our own volition. Volition means, our own will. We've got to do it. We've got to make the change. So this is something that I'm just going to teach on, okay? So let's just talk about it, because two quick things, let's just come right out. It's a commandment. Now, I don't know how, in hindsight, when you get, how do we lose this? Something so obvious. It is one of the 10 commandments of Yahweh, and I don't think there's anybody really, or if you would say that, I would be hard-pressed. We need to talk. But why would you say one of the commandments is not valid? You would not say that about to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. You wouldn't say that, thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not murder. I mean, the whole country's in an uproar right now because we're seeing something in our land that is very disturbing, could be very disturbing, but we're not going there today. But my point is, it is a commandment, and we cannot ignore it, and we have for too long. And I have talked to so many Christians, and one of the main things people say is, well, I just don't really understand the Old Testament. It's beautiful. Everybody has their pet, in the Psalms, places we go for comfort, encouragement, exhortation. Those are always loaded in the Word. But in terms of fitting us into it, there's a little bit of a gap that's happened. And it's because we have lost some of the foundational root concepts that would always keep us tethered to the plan of salvation by Yahweh Elohim. And it is Shabbat. It's like foundational. Two things, foundational, that are archetypes, big archetypes. And what an archetype means, it is the original. This is the original way to look at the plan of salvation through the concept of Shabbat. And if you lose that, you really don't know where you are in the cycle. And you wouldn't know what to restore. And you certainly couldn't come full circle if you didn't know where you were. So those are just kind of larger ways of putting it all into context. But I am convinced this is really not optional. This is something that the Father wants to see his children doing. In Revelation, it says that when the great multitude that's on the mountain, they keep the covenants of Moshe, they keep the covenants of Elohim, and they keep the commandments of Moshe, and they have the testimony of Yeshua. There's this concept that the old and the new are one kind of homogeneous concept together. So let's just go right into this. You have to look at the words in the Hebrew. That's why I brought out my little Hebrew. This is the word, the 22 letters, believe it or not. This is the word. These are living. This is like the DNA of our God in creation. He is alive, intelligent. He ultimately morphs and shapeshifts and creates all of creation. That's what the text tells us. And there's nothing under all creation that the Word has not made. Nothing was made that was not made by the Word. That's what Colossians tells us. But this letter, number 30, well, I mean, actually not number 30. This has a gematria of 30. But this is a lamed. The lamed, all right? It's a great letter. And when it pairs up, it has an intrinsic meaning. And when it pairs up, it adds that intrinsic meaning to the other pairings that are with it, and you get something. But what I want to say, just look at its shape. It is a cycle. It is the letter that really does denote cycle, things that cycle through. All right, so this is a very important word, and I do want to say that it is its shape, it has its intrinsic meaning, all for a purpose, because cycle is foundational to the whole construct that Elohim has set up for us. So cycle is also of the Hebrew word gilgal, and it means wheels, and it means cycles, and this is really and truly, this is the dimension of time. You know, Einstein thought he discovered, the dimension of time. Well, it's always been embedded in our word. There's nothing new under the sun. All right? Time has a beginning. According to us, that time has an end, unless you're into, quote unquote, the immortal times. So, this gilgal and cycle are integral. But what are they? What's cycling? All right, in time. And this is how we have to foundationally, truly, you cannot lose these concepts anywhere in the text. It's very important because it's a cycle. It starts out with the main pattern is a cycle of sevens, because you need to count. All right, so if you're going to keep track of time, you have to have a system by which you can count in exacts, in things that duplicate and ways that repeat, and that's what we get the sevens for. So we know archetypally, absolutely, there is a cycle of a week. I mean, today is Saturday. We just cycled through, and man, these weeks are going so fast. I can't believe it's Saturday again. But that is the foundational first starting off point. And it starts all the way in the cycle of the 7 days of the week, which is totally delineated in the very first book of the Bible, Genesis. And the Father cycles through 7 days, and he creates. And then on the seventh day, as it says quite well, he rests. All right? But let me say something about time, because there's a little bit of a misnomer here. There's many levels of meaning and nuanced understanding to our text. So don't get so, one verse theology, there's only one way to talk about this. That's not Hebraic. What it is also you cycle, and you cycle through these sevens. Built into this idea of Gilgal is also season cycle. We just had winter, spring, summer, fall. Age we cycle through. You would start as a baby and you cycle through these seasons of your life. This concept that things cycle, and a lot of times you cycle right back to where you started. This is the point, where you can know the end from the beginning, and there's nothing new under the sun, because it's all a cycle. Now, I said a lot because this is such a foundational understanding that you'll never really understand your text and how they encode information, and why they say on the second month, on the second day of the second month in the seventh the second week, the second day in the second month, things like this, because they're embedding time into this. So when we get into here, the week is the first one, most obvious. You go from Saturday, which is the seventh day. The first day is Sunday. And what I have to say about these words with time, it's not in a linear sense. These are what are called ordinal numbers, the days of creation, meaning they're epochs of time. It's not a 24-hour day cycle. I'm sorry. That is a literal Peshat level meaning, but that is not the totality of what the text is telling us. These are epochs. These are ages. And there are many, many ages kind of stuffed into all of these. So we have our 7 days of the week. And I think for a lot of people this might be very familiar information. But for a lot of Christians, I know you're not taught enough deeply on the embeddingness that's going on. And where we have lost track of time, in one sense, let me just say this, there's at least three calendars that are always kind of going on, interplaying with each other in our text. You know, you had an Essene calendar, you had the Greek calendar, you know, that the nations were using, and then you had the calendar of the Jews. So that adds a lot of extra digging you've got to do in this, but be that as it may. But this is definitely starting with epochs of time, starting with Genesis, cycling all the way down to what we manifest for us in our 24-hour days. We just cycle through a week. So quickly. Then it goes into years. Okay, so 7 times 7 years. So you take this concept of a week of years. So now we just turn these days into years. And then 7 of those years becomes what's called the Shemitah. A Shemitah, oh, I didn't write that up here. So you would go from the week, and actually the years, 7 years, is a Shemitah. All right? And very important things would happen on these. These were very important time epochs, and things were supposed to happen. So on the 7th, you were supposed to let the land rest. It's not an accident. This is a very necessary cycle for nature to stay in balance so that it can continue to serve us and minister to us and feed in everything that nature needs to do to sustain life on earth. That got so out of whack with Israel. I mean, that's part of why both houses, that says, okay, both houses got expelled from the land, basically, because they were not keeping these very important markers, cycles of time. Then you go in 7 times 7, then 7 years together makes a Shemitah. Then you multiply that 7 times 7, so 7 Shemitahs equals what is called a Jubilee. And this is so exciting. The reason Jubilee is really getting on people's radar, because ultimately people, and my point for doing Sabbath is we are coming up on the final Jubilee, the final rest. All the archetypes of the Sabbath are going to come into complete unity, and we will enter into literally a Sabbath rest, a day, and a day in this instance the Bible tells us clearly that day, that epoch of time, will be 1,000 years. So because it says very clearly that 1,000 years is as a day. So these are all ways in which the words interplay with each other, and they expand and they contract epochs of time, from 24-hour day weeks to a year. Add to a year is 1,000 days, to 7 years, to 7 times 7 years, to Jubilee. And there's even what is called a Great Jubilee, which is 120 Jubilees, which if you multiply 50 times 49, or 50 times 50, you get 120, which is kind of the whole concept of the time that includes of 6,000 years. So we are coming up on a final Jubilee, which is in this proclaimed Jubilee, which is proclaimed that we've come full circle. The final restoration is here. We are going into our Sabbath rest. Now, so it comes from the word. Now, in terms of the word, okay, established cycle. It also means rest. The root word, this is interesting, means to rest. And I'm sure a lot of people know these. But in the deeper levels, this is called the sod level. This is the meaning to rest. Now, to rest means nature has to work very hard. This is the point of it, to work. We all have to work very hard to maintain a level of, it's kind of like, it's like tilling the cycle so that we can work with the cycles of the growing season so we can have food. The animals, they need to store, you'll see them storing food for other seasons when they can't do that. There's always this concept built in that you work for 6 days on all sorts of levels. Hey, it takes a lot of work. Christians who think we're saved by faith and not by works, no, you don't understand. You don't understand cycles. You don't understand what these words intrinsically in their Hebrew mean. It takes a lot of work to keep your heart pure, to keep sin out of your life, out of your heart. It does. You got to be very vigilant. Almost every day, you've got to stand your ground. All right, we are in a very high stakes war. So it does. It takes a lot of work to maintain. But in this millennial rest, everything will be at rest. All the energies will be at 100% complete vibrational harmony, that everything will just produce itself effortlessly. Nobody's got to work. You just enjoy. It's like, I liken it to like today. It's a perfect June day. Everything is in balance. The sun is just right. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. The breeze is good. It's just a nice light breeze. Everything is in bloom. In a couple of weeks we'll start really having produce from the garden where we can just go and pick it and eat it. A lot of the hard work is done and it's time to enjoy. This is built into this picture of rest. But right now today you can see there's a lot of discord because there's a lot of vibrational energies that are not in harmony. That's how you know you're not in a Sabbath rest, because of the chaos, the turmoil, the upheaval. See, this is another indication. You just contrast. Just listen to 10 minutes of the news today. It'll fry your brain and churn you all up, and then just go into nature and try and have a Sabbath rest, the peace, the rest. It's a very stark contrast. And we need to dwell to get through these times in this Sabbath peace. And one of the ways you have to come back to the actual day and get into the groove, start to practice and flow with this. There's tremendous power in spiritual energy and enlightenment and harmony when you begin to flow with the cycles of time, of day and night, and the days of the week, and and Shemitahs, and then you do the festivals. It's incredible. Christian, we've lost so much, but we're coming back. So the root word really does mean to rest. It comes from the word, your Strong's 27677. And there's a couple of words that always you kind of swirl around this, 7676, 7677, and it comes from a Hebrew root word that does mean absolutely to rest, to cease, to desist, to literally stop. So all work stops. So this word, do a word study on it. You can glean a tremendous amount, but one thing that's always integral again into this concept of cycle and rest is there's an observance. This is the thing about the feast. And again, I don't know how we lost this. I mean, it's a commandment. It's right there. It's also, we're told to keep the Sabbaths over and over and to keep the feasts. So again, the onus is on us for letting these things slip through, so to speak, the cracks of our faith and practice. Now, and again, it says, Exodus 23:12 is one of the primary verses. Any quick Bible study program will give you all of these usages, but Exodus 23:12, okay, it tells us right there that on 6 days you're to work, but on the 7th day you're to cease. And then it's not just us, and this is really some deep stuff, but it encoded into this, but it says you and your ox and your donkey. Ox is, I have a YouTube channel that I have go into a lot of depth on a lot of these mysteries, you know, and I'm not going to go into it here because this is kind of like I consider just sort of elementary, but also I just want to point it out to you. The ox and the donkey are paired across from each other, and there is also the son of the maidservant and the alien or stranger. These are just a positioned. So you have the believer, but you also have other categories in there that are told and commanded and included in this Sabbath rest. So it really does encompass all of the living souls of creation. But like I said, Sabbath is like a perfect summer day, a perfect June day, and it really does renew our soul, especially after a trauma or a time of winter, a more difficult season. And that's the reason it begins after that. Now, let me go and talk about, let me say my little 2, let me go to 3. Now, as I said, it's the 4th commandment. It is, now the interesting thing is, you should look this up, but if you go to Exodus 20, it's again Exodus 20, where it lists the 10 commandments. It's one of the spots. There's 2 or 3 spots where it lists them. But in Exodus 20, 8 through 11, where it lists the commandments, this is really interesting. All of the other commandments, it only gives it one verse. It lists it once. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Pretty basic. But when it gets to talking about the Sabbath, there are 4 verses. There are actually 4 verses interspersed in 8 to 11 that talk strictly about the Sabbath and really establish, again, that's how important it is. It's right there in the commandment, and every angle, all 3 angles are covered in this. It is, the letters, and if I had time I could get into that. It's Shin Daled. Where did I write that down? Shin Daled. From the root, where did I write that down? Oh, a Shin Bet Tav. But when we're talking about here, hold on, I got so many. We're talking about in the different ways, the 4 verses, it's set apart in the sense that it lists the cycle, a physical cycle or application to it in the 4 verses. Then it talks about how it is, we're to practice this over and over. So in the years, every year we're supposed to come back to it as a remembrance and as observance. Now I realize the Jews have a long history. You know, think of it this way. The Jews, our older brother, Judah, has been practicing the Sabbath for 3,313 years. We were only, as I said, practicing this for about 700 years in the land until we got exiled. But even more so, this is an everlasting covenant. This, you can go, when you include this with the Noahide laws, going farther back into the writings, and the Mishnah totally carries this forward. They were practicing Sabbath way before Moshe. This is an established cycle. It isn't like he just discovered. Moshe didn't just like think this up or discover it. They've all known. I mean, anybody who's has lived under 7 days, you know, and sees things that are cycling through. The Ethiopian Jews and the Ethiopian Christians, even today, have the longest Sabbath keeping record on the planet. They've been keeping it 2,000 years longer, or maybe it was 700 years longer. The Ethiopians have been keeping the Jubilees and the Sabbath for 700 years before Moshe. And what you'll begin to understand when you go deeper in the writings and get more information is that Job, one of the patriarchs, Job was from that area. Job was, and that's one of the reasons, he was a patriarch, he was a believer, he was practicing this, he was doing this in his culture, in his time. He was upholding this covenant, this archetype, this picture. And so that's why it's even way back then. It's documented. The Ethiopian Jews have been doing that. So it's not like new. It's something that we have to cycle through and come back to full circle if we want to have restoration. You know, a lot of prophets today, you know, they're all saying, oh, we're going to have a revival and renewal, and it's going to be a reformation, all this stuff. Well, to a certain extent, yeah, but what? To what? There's nothing new under the sun. It means we're finally just going to come back, get into the house originally, live by the rules of the house, okay? And, you know, it's like the barn. It's like Yeshua said, you know, he's going to gather his wheat and put it in the barn. Well, what's the barn? It's, again, it's an archetype. It's a representation of the house of God, the house of Yahweh. And there's rules. There's a way you do things. All right? Who's going to go into, really and truly, are you going to celebrate Easter in heaven? Are you going to paint little eggs? Nothing rude. I mean, seriously. You have to think of some of your pagan practices, or just going your own way and totally ignoring this whole bedrock foundational concept in Torah, or you're going to kind of get on the page. But like I said, this sign is old. It starts out in Genesis again, and then it goes into the Jubilees. Jubilee is a code word, actually. It's a code word for, and I'll go into this at other times, I have teachings, but for Bina, which is for when the final level of restoration, of being restored. It's the place that Adam kind of fell. We fell from this very high level of rest into this chaotic mess, and we will get back to it. But Genesis, the pattern is absolutely established in Genesis 2 and Genesis 3, that he set the pattern, that he worked, he labored, Elohim labored on 6 days, and on the 7th day he ceased, he rested. There was just pure enjoyment of the creation of us, of everything, until a new cycle started. And this is the clock ticking of the 6,000 years for us into a 7-day cycle of restoration, started with the fall of Adam. But there were many, many, many cycles, Gilgals, before that. Something that's very deeply embedded into the text, but it is absolutely there. So it is one of the signs of the people of Yahweh. This is the sign. If you want a sign on your hand and in your forehead, hand means it's a visible thing. It's a ritual. It's a practice. But in the mind, or the head is represents the mind, and your actions come out of your mind. So if your mind is not into Sabbath, your actions are not going to be into Sabbath, right? But if you're, hey Jack, good to see you this morning. So if your mind is in Sabbath, then your actions will be in it also, which again, now let me just show you kind of what happened, all right? Because unfortunately it was kind of sad that Ephraim kind of left the Sabbaths, right? This is one of the problems. Ephraim, which to me, you understand, I always use this word because it's kind of a little bit more of the most overarching biblical words. But if you want a Christian, if you want to find yourself in the Bible, in the Old Testament, which is in the New Testament, when it talks about Christos, those who are in covenant, are back in Christos, they have this knowledge and understanding. They have been enlightened. They have, you know, come back into this understanding and this covenant relationship. This was lost. Here, let me just find this little spot. I had some of this. This was lost when the times and the seasons were changed. There's a very famous book in Daniel 7, in the book of Daniel in 7:25. It says that he, you know, you can refer to as Antichrist, but these large principalities and powers that work against Yahweh and his people changed the times and the laws of Elohim. So this losing of this is not necessarily we lost our way, but because we are very much impacted by very powerful. This is something I also want to really teach them. These principalities and these powers that are absolutely unleashed on our world today. We are really in a battle of galactic proportions. But it says that these appointed times and their decrees, it's referring to this cycle of sevens, foundational. And the fact that 10 commandments, they bear witness of each other. It's the 4th commandment. You have to have the law, the testimony, all right, and you have the appointed times. These work together to keep Israel as a separate nation that is in kind of choreographing to the nations the plan and the heart of Yahweh for creation. So if we lose that, then it's like, what good are we? We've lost our saltiness. Might as well just throw us out. All right. So Paul talks about this is in terms of, and this is a fascinating study. Do it. I mean, when you understand that our New Testament is really Jewish believers living out this revelation of Messiah ben Joseph, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, in their day and time, and allowing all of the quote unquote the Gentiles, the lost sheep, to come back into covenant. All right. That these were, this is the house of Israel. Judah has always practiced the Sabbath. They never stopped doing it. As I keep saying, we are the ones. So, now, what it says in Ezekiel 20 and 13, verses 13 and 17, it says it twice, is that we the house of Israel. Okay, so remember, Christian, you're the house of Israel, you're Ephraim, the house of Joseph, you're the northern kingdom, you're the lost sheep, you're the multiplied seed, you are the prodigal in the parable of the prodigal son. You are there's one other big one. I said lost sheep. It'll come to me. But these are all archetypes of us. Okay, Judah's always called Judah, house of David. They're pretty easily identified. But this is, like I said, the biggest identity theft. But the Father's restoring all of this understanding to us. But it says, Ezekiel says, one of the reasons we cycle. Another thing is, how many times do you cycle over the same sins over and over, you know? But they're called besetting sins. You know, you just can't seem to break the cycle. All right? This is, again, in the negative way, how sometimes these things play out, all right? And believe me, in the deeper levels, our enemy in his sorceries, his witchcrafts, his many, he cycles and he follows a cycle, and he works against us with powerful energies, working the system in a negative sense. It's very powerful stuff. But anyways, the thing it says, Ezekiel says very plainly, there's three things that we did. We rejected the ordinances. We would not follow the Torah. We wouldn't go down to Jerusalem and do the festivals. We wanted to invent this thing our way. This is one of Ephraim's traits. We refused to walk or to practice in these ordinances. We started making up our own. That's historically always been true in the house of Ephraim. And we profane the Sabbath. We did. We have allowed, in Christianity today, and the whole history of it, and I'm not, replacement theology that came into the church through, Constantine, and it kept growing and replacing all these foundational Hebraic concepts, until today we really have a very Greek, Western, pagan, all the attributes of this in our Christianity and in our faith and in our practice. And this is what the Father, the cleansing and the sanctifying, in a lot of ways, we're just getting started. But these are some of the things that we have historically done, and we need to absolutely get victory and total correction on these. It says very clearly that we are to keep the Sabbaths holy, and there's to be, because it's a visible witness to the nations that there is a millennial rest. If we don't tell you that there's an end game, and if you can come in through the door, you're allowed a millennial rest. There, everything will be just. And this is the thing that's exciting about it. And I don't know what, there is something in there that for those that are really woke up and read all the really esoteric kind of deep state stuff going on out there, there is a talk of a reset, a financial reset, a jubilee. I don't know really who's behind it. We will wait and see. We have to walk very closely to Yahweh and see how everything plays out. So, this is meant to be a sign. The Sabbaths were a sign. They are meant to sanctify the people. As you come back every day, kind of get your head out of the world, get your head into into the Torah, into Yahweh, into the people of God, spend a day set apart, holy, enjoying it. See, Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. There is a legalistic spirit that can attach to it. You know, should we be surprised? No. But it's a very happy, joyous, carefree, spiritually heightened day. And we need to reap its benefits. So that is, let's see how much if I have anything left on this. Well, because I want to say, now this is what's kind of exciting. Because first of all, all right, now let me say that Elohim, because he blessed the seventh day. So if you really want to come into the blessings of Elohim, that's one of the reasons why, you know, a lot of Christians just kind of cycle through with besetting sins. There's a reason for these. It's hard to get rid of the negative energies truly into full deliverance and into the protective. There's a safe zone. If you're in the household, you're in a safe zone. You know, when there's trouble out in the streets, what do? You stay home. You stay in your house. It's protective. This is a picture, an archetype, that as we come into this understanding and we practice and we surround ourselves with, because angels, I mean, this activates, again, angels will surround us. Angels will surround the righteous. And on so many levels, that gives us protection, health-wise, financially, prosperity, our children, our relationships, I mean, on every level. So there's a lot to be gleaned from this. There's a lot to be benefited from. And I mean, I would just have to say categorically that Ephraim, the Christians today, if you want to come out of this, you know, this whole COVID thing, you know, because basically, obviously, the Christianity that's been practicing in America for the last 25 years has really rendered us basically non-essential, because that's what the culture just deemed us, right? And we just took it. Well, I didn't, but some people did, and we need to find, if you want to come out of there with leadership that has been anointed to take us into the next, like Joshua, to take us into the promised land, it's got to be people with boldness, people who are practicing, who are back in the house, who have an understanding of these foundational ordinances and precepts and unchanging laws of Yahweh. He doesn't change. So on that note, to go through it again, Sabbath it's a cycle. It is a cycle of 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 Shemitahs into Jubilees. It is a rest. It's to cease, to enjoy, to be at peace, to make peace. It's a time to study Torah. This is the whole, there's so many things that we can do. You don't have to go out and, there's just so many things that you can do, even today. You know, tikkun, turn you this day. You know, today is the day. Choose you who you're going to serve. You're going to serve the world and have, you know, and even a religious system that changed the day to Saturday, to Sunday. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Or are you going to go back to the Father like a good prodigal and in his house and obey his house rules? So on that note, just shalom, Shabbat Shalom, and enjoy today, and let's just keep walking this thing out. Oh, I had one thing. So this is really kind of exciting. I mean, anyway, so I have found so many women that I know, women of God locally in the area and from all over now, that want to come into this understanding. We have started a Friday night Shabbat. Okay, so truly I want you to, Shabbat starts on Friday night. The cycle of Shabbat, the 24-hour day that actually marks off that observance time period, starts in the evening, Shabbat at sunset, and it cycles through into the next sunset. So we're starting a group, a prophetic act for prophetic times. And we are coming together in a Zoom room, and I hope to get there personally, but mostly Zoom works fine, to come together to light our Shabbat candles. Do you know that the women have been lighting Shabbat candles all over the globe for thousands and thousands of years? And it's time that we join with our sisters in the house of Judah so that we can put this whole thing, the whole picture together. Women all around the world, including Christian women, now coming into understanding, lighting candles in solidarity. If you want to support Israel today, support Shabbat. Light your candles at sunset on Friday evening and see the picture. It is a prophetic act. Is that light of Shabbat, it's going to make me cry, lights up all over the world. It is such a picture of the millennium. We are on Mashiach's page. We're in his house. We're doing his rules. We're ready for it. I say, come, Yeshua, come. So if you'd like to join us, if you're a woman of God and you want to come in and take part in this prophetic act for a prophetic time, Facebook me, private message me, email me, call me, whatever. I think it's pretty exciting. I think this is really going to bring great glory to Yahweh. So, Shabbat Shalom.